Lee Tai Long, born in 1968 in Hong Kong into a poor family, had to drop out of school early to work as a manual laborer. He particularly admired martial arts star Bruce Lee, as their names were very similar, and began to study martial arts, repeatedly watching his films and studying the fight scenes to train himself at the Asyocha, with the ambition of becoming a triad boss. Lee Tai Long joined the Sun Yee On, the most powerful triad at the time. Thanks to his tall stature and superior fighting ability, he quickly earned merit in turf wars and was assigned to operate in the Yuen Long district. He stood out in clashes, often wielding a large machete, striking decisively and single-handedly taking down numerous opponents, earning him the nickname Black Overlord. In the early 1990s, the top leaders of the Sun Yee and the Five Tigers fell one by one due to assassination, accidents, or imprisonment, creating a massive power vacuum. Rival gangs like 14K and Wo Shing Wo seized this opportunity to repeatedly cause trouble and seize territory, especially in the Tsim Sha Tsui area. In this context, Lee Tai Long led his followers into battle against the Wo Shing Wo gang. With his arrogant nature, refusing to negotiate, he forced his opponents to either retreat unconditionally or face him directly. In the ensuing battles, Lee Tai Long inflicted heavy losses on Wo Shing Wo, forcing them to withdraw. This victory brought him to the attention of the Sun Yee On's high-level manager Dragonhead, who brought him to Tsim Sha Tsui East to become the right-hand man of a gang elder. After demonstrating his superior abilities, Lee Tai Long was given full control of the Tsim Sha Tsui East area, becoming one of the Triad's 10 heroes. He quickly restored the Sun Yee On's prestige, forcing businesses like karaoke bars and casinos in the area to pay him protection money. From then on, he became famous with the title Overlord of Tsim Sha Tsui East. The video also recounts the 2002 conflict between Lee Tai Long and Daiwa, a leader from Wo Shing Wo. Despite being outnumbered, Lee Tai Long fearlessly charged straight into the rival group, aiming directly for Daiwa. As a result, Daiwa was forced to kneel and beg for his life. This scene was filmed and became a great humiliation, while Lee Tai Long's reputation soared. However, he grew increasingly arrogant. In 2003, he and his accomplices extorted protection money from over 200 brothels and were arrested by the police. After Hong Kong's handover to China, many old-school triad bosses shifted to more low-profile business. But Lee Tai Long ignored this advice, dismissing it as outdated thinking. In 2006, another Wo Shing Wo boss, Hing Sam Chung, was determined to retake Tsim Sha Tsui East. When their followers clashed, Lee Tai Long heard the news and immediately brought his men to the scene. In the chaotic brawl, he smashed a bottle over Hing Sam Chung's head, and then used the broken shard to stab him in the face, completely disfiguring his rival. Lee Tai Long was arrested after this incident. His followers gathered to surround the police station, but were also arrested. In 2008, he caused another scandal by making improper advances toward a female student and ordering his men to beat up her boyfriend. Lee Tai Long's rampage ended in the early morning of August 4th, 2009. After singing karaoke at a hotel, he was standing on the roadside smoking, waiting for his follower to get the car. Suddenly, a car rammed straight into him. Immediately after, a group of thugs with knives jumped out of another car and relentlessly attacked him. The entire event took less than a minute. Lee Tai Long was rushed to the hospital but died at the age of 41 due to excessive blood loss. The autopsy showed he had been stabbed 6 times in vital areas and had severe head trauma, proving the assailants intended to kill him. At his funeral, his wife announced she would not seek revenge. After many years of investigation, the police identified the mastermind as Hing Sam Chung, the man whose face Lee Tai Long had disfigured. Hing Sam Chung had fled to Thailand, but in 2020, suffering from cancer, he returned to Hong Kong and confessed to the police, finally closing the case. Lee Tai Long's life, from an unknown dreaming of emulating his idol to the notorious overlord of Tsim Sha Tsui East, was a long series of days lived in violence and extreme arrogance. He may have stood at the pinnacle of the underworld, forcing rivals to kneel and beg for their lives. But in the end, the very path of violence he chose was the one that came back to end him. His tragic death at 41, on the same streets he once ruled, was not a surprise, but an inevitable conclusion. It serves as a stark warning to anyone who believes violence can bring glory. What goes around comes around, and heaven's justice spares no one. To the young people who might be mistaken about the glamour of the gangster world seen in movies or stories, Lai Tai Long's life is not a movie. There is no glory that lasts forever. Only the price you pay is real. Arrogance might bring you temporary fame, but it also digs a grave for you, just as Hing Sam Chung did for Lai Tai Long. The path of a gangster really only has two destinations. One is permanently behind prison bars, and the other is a tragic and lonely death on the streets. Please cherish your future, your family, and your own life. Never waste your life by stepping onto that dark path. Thank you all for taking the time to watch today's video. If you found this content helpful, don't forget to support us with a like and subscribe to the channel. Goodbye, and see you in the next case files. He was known as one of the most powerful underworld figures in Hong Kong, a man that even the toughest gangsters respected. Most of the strongmen in the organization had once served under his command. He personally intervened to settle problems on movie sets for Stephen Chow, helping broker the legendary partnership between Chow and Charles Hume's Wins Entertainment. At one point, he risked his life entering Macau to defend Charles Hume, nearly dying after striking the powerful godfather Yuan Kwokao, quelling a major gang conflict in the process. When Jimmy Hume clashed with businessman Young, Lam Kong's fury made even this influential figure fall silent. The arrogant enforcer of the Eastern Horse faction once received a slap across the face from Lam Kong, and didn't he dare fight back. When the Sun Yee On organization was nearing decline, Lam Kong swiftly gathered and empowered the strongest men, crushing rival factions with overwhelming force. In the underworld, a saying spread: when the Ewing family commands, the Lam clan conquers. Lam Kong was the chief enforcer Dai Yonghua, and of Sun Jie on the operational brain and iron fist behind the triades. Dominance. Born in 1955 in Lufeng, Guangdong, his real name was Lam Si Hip, the eldest of 6 siblings. He grew up in a poor family after his father died young, leaving his mother to raise 7 children alone. He came from humble beginnings. Lam had an older cousin, Lam King, who had moved to Hong Kong decades earlier and joined forces with Sun Yee On's founder, Heung Chin, the Emperor of Kowloon. Lam King became a trusted lieutenant. When Heung Chin was deported to Taiwan in 1953, Lam King helped his eldest son Heung Wo Yim consolidate power back in Hong Kong. Later, Lam King brought his cousin Lam Kong to Hong Kong, recognizing his potential. Lam Kong was tall, physically imposing, and a skilled martial artist capable of taking on more than 10 men at once. By the late 1970s, as Sun Yee On expanded, he followed Lam King and Lam Sing, fighting bloody turf wars. First was the infamous Yuan Long battle, where they crushed the rival Wo Hapto triad, shaking the entire underworld. Then came the legendary Doorgate War, which cemented Sun Yee On's dominance over crucial territories. Lam Kong led the new 4 Tigers, a squad of feared fighters, to storm Tsim Sha Tsui, driving out the 14K's notorious black and white imp through sheer force and iron discipline. The Lam clan helped Sun Yee On grow to over 200,000 members during its golden age, becoming the largest triad organization in Hong Kong. In the late 1980s, Hong Kong's film industry exploded. Gang groups began deep infiltration into film production, using the business as a front for money laundering, extortion, and influence. Rival groups, like 14K, also made their moves, most notably Fu Yi Film Company, backed by the infamous Hu Tu-young and former Jet Li's manager. Actors were often extorted or physically threatened, and even megastars had no real protection. Andy Lau himself once spoke openly about the dangers actors faced at the time. Among these turbulent forces, one star was just beginning his rise: Stephen Chow. Known for his comedic genius but shy personality, Chow had poor relations with his management company. Charles and Jimmy Hume of Wins Entertainment saw a golden opportunity to sign him. But at that time, Stephen Chow was hesitant, knowing the Huing family's background and the risks involved. Coincidentally, Lam Kong had launched his own small film company and cast Stephen Chow in a gangster movie. During filming, Lam Kong and Stephen Chow became close friends. One day, while Stephen was shooting on set, a group of thugs arrived demanding protection money. Lam Kong, who happened to be drinking tea nearby, got word and immediately went to the scene. He ordered his men to protect Stephen, then personally confronted the gang leader. The moment the thug saw Lam Kong, his face turned pale. He nearly knelt down, begging for forgiveness. Lam Kong slapped him several times and sent him running with his crew. This act left a deep impression on Stephen Chow. He realized Lam Kong was not just powerful, but also someone who could protect him. Later, through Lam Kong's introduction, Stephen Chow officially joined forces with Win's Entertainment, marking the start of one of the most legendary partnerships in Hong Kong cinema. In the early 1990s, Macau's gambling industry became a battleground for triads. Groups from Hong Kong, including Sun Yee On and 14K, flooded the city, competing for lucrative casino territories. The local Unji-ku gang, led by the feared Bodhisattva Godfather, dominated the area and formed a defensive alliance called the Four-Company Union to resist the outsiders. Sun Yee On, led by Heung Waba and supported by Charles and Jimmy Heung, moved in to expand their territory. Tensions escalated until one night, near a restaurant outside a hotel resort, over Sambayanji-ku soldiers surrounded the Heung brothers and their men, who were caught off guard while having a late-night meal. Outnumbered, Charles Heung and his crew held their ground as some rushed to call for reinforcements. Word reached Lam Kong, who was stationed nearby with over 100 men. Furious, he drew a blade from his belt and charged straight into the enemy ranks, catching Unjika's leader off guard and slashing him across the arm, leaving a deep scar. The sudden assault broke the enemy's formation. Lam Kong led his men to rescue the Heung brothers, forcing Unjiku to retreat. The incident became an instant legend in triad folklore, remembered as Lam Kong's 3 blades to save the boss. Even Macau's casino tycoon had to step in to mediate afterward. As Hong Kong entered the new millennium, the underworld landscape began to change. The government increased pressure on organized crime, the economy shifted, and society modernized. The once dominant triad empires faced new realities. Sun Yee On, at its peak, with over 200,000 members, began to scale back illegal operations and transition toward legitimate business. The Huang family and their allies shifted to behind-the-scenes management, using their influence more subtly in real estate, entertainment, and other industries. During this period, Wo Shing Wo and Jihoa seized the opportunity to expand, taking over parts of Tsim Sha Tsui, a district once built and defended by the Lam clan. Watching the territory he helped conquer fall into enemy hands, Lam Kong was furious. To fight back, he identified and promoted a new generation of bold, ruthless men within the organization. Among them was Li Tai-long, a ferocious and daring gangster who became known as the Overlord of Tsim Sha Tsui. Under Lam Kong's backing, Li Tai-long launched a violent campaign, slashing the 14KSC, Sung Su Doa, smashing rival gang tattoos with wine bottles, and reclaiming turf through raw brutality. For a time, Sun Yee On regained its strength, pushing Wo Shing Wo back and stabilizing its position. But society was changing fast. The glory days of brutal street battles were fading. Modern law enforcement, surveillance, and public pressure made it harder for triads to operate as they once did. Many old-school gangsters either adapted or vanished. In his later years, Lam Kong gradually stepped away from active underworld operations, becoming more of a respected elder figure, a living legend. Unlike many triad bosses who faded in silence or died violently, Lam Kong remained publicly visible. Every year on his birthday, he hosted lavish banquets in Tsim Sha Tsui, with dozens of tables filled with influential figures from different circles. Old triad leaders, businessmen, entertainers, and community figures. Surprisingly, his invitations carried patriotic poems, a way of showing his allegiance to China and reinventing his image as a community leader rather than a feared gangster. He also began donating to charities and participating in patriotic events, blending the line between his underworld past and public respectability.